Good afternoon, my name is Jacqueline Champion and I'd like to offer a very warm welcome as we unite in both love and friendship, not just to say goodbye, but more importantly to pay tribute and to celebrate the life of Elsie Maud Carberry. All of us are facing unknown times and have concerns and more questions than we have answers. Here now, let us leave that world outside, take a deep breath and concentrate on our love for Elsie. Human life is universal and yet unique, each one of us as unique as a fingerprint or a snowflake. When one of us dies, we are bereft. No one will have the same smile, the same voice, the same impact on our lives or way of loving us as we love them, and it hurts deeply. We have to accept their departure from our lives, but somehow, bit by bit, find comfort in our memories of Elsie and hold them close to us in our hearts and mind. I'm accredited through the Fellowship of Independent Celebrants, and it is an honour to conduct this ceremony, and I wish to thank Colin and Rosie for allowing me to perform this final act for Elsie. Elsie passed away on the 18th of April from the fragility of old age, and I know that Colin was grateful that he could be with her. We have time to reflect on how much it is valued, receiving all the beautiful and touching cards and messages. We think of the people who would like to have been here today to show their last respects. And if you're watching this video, it's because you care for Elsie and couldn't be here, and I hope you'll have some comfort in hearing this eulogy. People that knew Elsie have kindly offered the following words to describe her personality. So let's take a moment to reflect why Elsie was so special and celebrate the time we did have with her. Elsie was witty, with a wicked sense of humour, kind and gentle, never judgmental, patient, unflappable and tolerant, knowledgeable and intelligent, likeable, welcoming, inviting, courageous, everyone's dream of the perfect mother-in-law. These are the characteristics of Elsie that we should remember with affection, someone who never let things get her down and stayed cheerful and upbeat despite everything. Elsie Maud Clift was born in Ashton, Birmingham on the 9th of November 1920. Her parents, Richard and Leah Nee Johnson, had 4 children, Elsie, Irene, Joyce and a son, Richard. Richard had died in 1918, just aged 3. His nightgown caught fire when he was playing. There was no national health in those days, no free ambulances, so he died on the kitchen table with neighbours trying valiantly to save him and to treat his burns, but it was in vain. On a happier note, Elsie would often talk of her childhood days in Cheltenham, visiting her mother's family, who all lived in the Cleve Hill area. It was a welcome escape from the overcrowded slums and pollution of industrial Birmingham, and Elsie absolutely loved to walk in the hills, smell the fresh air and see nature at its best. Her grandfather in Cheltenham, Charles Johnson, was a friendly and gentle countryman with a huge moustache, typical of the Edwardian era, and Elsie idolised him. She was very bright and artistic at school, usually finishing top of her class. A school friend, Dennis Dean, later qualified as a doctor, but would often tell the family that Elsie was in fact much brighter than him, a more able student than he had ever been. And had she been born into a different world and not into the working class, she would have gone on and had a fulfilling career in medicine or the arts. Instead, she followed the well-trodden path of women for that era and went to work as a machine operator at the GEC factory, Whitton, Aston. At the GEC, she met Fred, an orphaned immigrant from New York, a frustrated musician turned toolmaker. Fred worked in the factory to make a living, but his lifelong love was music. So he also worked as a piano teacher and a church organist. As a young man, he somehow came to the attention of composer Gustav Holst, who regarded him as a genuine talent. However, a professional career in music was beyond a man of Fred's background. They married in 1940. Like most young couples at that time, they didn't know what the wartime future would hold, so decided to marry quickly, just in case. Elsie was only 19 at the time. Fred volunteered for the RAF, but as an American citizen was turned down. In 1940, before Pearl Harbor, it still looked like the Americans would be coming into the war on the German side, so Fred was at risk of internment. Once America had come into the war, Fred decided to enlist and received his call-up papers, but by this time he had been promoted to the position of tool room foreman, so GEC needed to keep him back as a reserved occupation. Elsie always said that there would be a nervous wait while the Ministry of Defence processed the reserved occupation application just in case it got turned down. Fred was slightly wounded by flying glass when their house was bombed, but Elsie would laugh as she said he was more concerned that his piano might have been damaged, so sat in blood-stained pyjamas playing the scales just to make sure the piano was indeed okay. After the war, they started a family. The plan was to have 2 children, but they ended up with 3. Once he was an adult, Elsie would tease Colin, the youngest, by telling him that he was here only courtesy of the London Rubber Company Quality Control Department. The children were Ian John, born in 1947, Cynthia Mary, born in 1951, and Colin Richard, born in 1955. As well as being a doctor, Dennis Dean, Elsie's school friend, was a good violinist. Fred and Dennis would play duets in the front parlour. Elsie would sometimes sing. She always loved singing, right up to her old age, and had a lovely voice. Fred would play the piano for the kids at bedtime. Teddy Bear's Picnic, followed by practising his beloved Chopin and Debussy. We've chosen a Chopin nocturne for the music today in memory of those wonderful times. Fred died in 1961, aged 48, of cancer. They'd just moved to a house which needed extensive renovation, so Elsie was left, aged 41, with 3 young kids in a semi-derelict house and no money owing to a clerical error by the insurance company. She made ends meet by working at 3 jobs: office cleaning in the morning, cleaning and paperwork for an osteopath in the afternoon, and office cleaning again at a local factory in the evenings. Eventually, though, all 3 kids left school at 16 and were able to get jobs, giving some housekeeping money to Elsie so she could stop working so hard. She settled for just 1 or 2 domestic cleaning jobs in the daytime, leaving her free to have evenings at home. Elsie loved reading and would spend most evenings lying on the sofa with empty teacups and apple cores scattered all around, ploughing her way through a tome like the Forsyth Saga or a hefty biography. She fell in love again at the age of 53 when she met Harry, a widower, who also had a hard life. He had survived fierce fighting at Dunkirk, Burma and Normandy, only to have his wife die in childbirth with twins after the war. Harry was left to try and bring up the children on his own whilst working day shifts at Dunlop Tyres in Birmingham. He was so exhausted most days, having been up all night with the twins. His workmates would send him off to get some sleep in the toilets, covering for his work. Elsie and Harry were very happy and brought some fun and companionship into her life at last. In 1979, they decided to marry, and she moved into Harry's house and put her own house on the market. In 1980, Harry developed cancer and died quite suddenly at home in Elsie's arms. She took his death quite stoically, almost as if she accepted this was just the cards that life had decided to deal her. She never let bad luck get her down, always staying cheerful and upbeat. In 1998, she was put in touch with her sister-in-law Mary and niece Millicent in Dallas, Texas. Cynthia, Colin and Bernard, Cynthia's husband, decided to take 78-year-old Elsie to meet these family members for the first time. The flight from New York to Dallas involved following the line of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Never having seen America, Elsie spent much of the flight with her head pressed against the window, looking down in fascination at the forests and mountains. By the time the flight had arrived in Dallas, her neck had locked solid. Later in the trip, she got to stay for a few days in New York, where her beloved Fred had been born. Her daughter Cynthia died in 2002 of cancer. Elsie was at her bedside when she died in intensive care on a respirator. Her sister Irene died in 2004, and her older sister Joyce died in 2008. Her son Ian died in 2017, again of cancer. At this time, Elsie was 97, living at home in the home of a wonderful carer, Martha Clow, beginning to get rather frail as dementia took hold. It seemed like Ian's death was just one too many for her to accept, so her health and behaviour went into rapid decline. Sometimes she understandably seemed a little bitter, but then her general cheerfulness would re-emerge, and she'd be the old Elsie again, the one we knew and loved. For the first 18 months of her life, in the last 18 months of her life, Elsie lived at the Vernwy nursing home in Llansan where she was cared for very well by the staff there. She was generally content and kept everyone on their toes by randomly bursting into song at all times of day and night. The staff reported that one of her final performances was a lusty rendition of God Save the Queen at 3 o'clock in the morning. She always enjoyed a good laugh. Her lifelong favourites include Laurel and Hardy, so we've decided to include a piece of their music. We hope she can hear it somewhere and sing it along with her usual gusto. Elsie died peacefully at 1:29 in the morning on April the 18th. Colin was with her. We're now going to take a moment to listen to Chopin Nocturne. really beautiful piece, and I've got images of Colin, you lying in bed as a child and falling to sleep with the tinkering of those ivory keys, listening to that. Now going to read a poem. Weep Not for Me Though I Am Gone by Constance Jenkins. Weep not for me though I am gone into that gentle night. Grieve if you will, but not for long, upon my soul's sweet flight. I am at peace, my soul's at rest. There is no need for tears, for with your love I was so blessed for all of those years. There is no pain, I suffer not, the fear is all now gone. Put now these things out of your thoughts, in your memory I live on. Please do not dwell upon my death, but celebrate my life. As a pebble falls into a lake and is seen no more, so it is with Elsie. However, we don't realise how much we influence those around us, even after we have gone. And the ripples she has made will continue to spread throughout all our lives, and the imprint of her life will never leave us. If you'd like to stand while we say our final goodbye. Elsie Maud Carberry. Your life we honour, your departure we have to accept. Your memory we cherish, in grief at your death, but in gratitude for your life and for the privilege of sharing it with you. We tenderly release you, your body, to its natural end. May your light remain with us always. We commit your body to be cremated. Elsie, along with our sadness at your death, we remember with happiness your love and your friendship. We remember you have helped to bring value and meaning to our lives with your unique qualities that enhanced our lives, and we thank you for this. You gave so much, and you leave this world a richer place than you found it. Please be seated. As we prepare to depart this place, let us promise to devote ourselves to things worthwhile, to fill our own lives with words and actions of real and meaningful worth. And finally, as we re-enter the world outside, let us work together to have the patience to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time. And to finish our tribute today in memory of those Blue Ridge Mountains and Elsie's love of the Trail of the Lonesome Pine. Thank you.
Just below is the cannonball of girl of mine. My name is humanity, very soon she'll belong to me. For I know she's waiting there for me, that long pine tree. In the cremation mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine, in the pale moonshine, my heart's entwined, where she carved her name, and I carved mine too, or to just ride along the blue like a pine. I am lonesome for you. In the blue mountains of Virginia, on the trail